porque en estos momentos ya está juramentando, va a juramentar el próximo presidente de los Estados Unidos. Escuchemos, Joe Biden.
And repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank
President.
You.
Así fue como toma posesión, toma protesta Joseph Biden como el 46º presidente de los Estados Unidos. Sigamos escuchando esta transmisión especial aquí en Sin Censura. Bueno, y así continúa esta ceremonia de la inauguración, así se le llama en inglés, aquí en los Estados Unidos, de inauguration, esta toma de protesta de Joe Biden, así como lo platicábamos hace unos momentos con nuestros compañeros Alina Duarte y Benjamin Norton, una toma de protesta que se da en medio de una problemática, en medio. Vamos a escuchar la ceremonia.
It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile, And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country has taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face.
En estricto sentido, el presidente Biden, ya juramentado presidente Biden, presidente de los Estados Unidos, acaba de agradecer obviamente a sus predecesores, a sus compañeros. Está haciendo una apología, la tradición de los Estados Unidos de la lucha por los derechos civiles, precisamente hablando de la división que existe y de cómo hay una necesidad absoluta de hacerle frente al supremacismo blanco, cómo hacerle una frente al racismo. Escuchemos.
We can deliver racial justice and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle.
Es difícil hablar de la unidad en estos momentos, que la división existe. Es una división que no es nueva, que tiene ya tiempo.
Nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect.
Habla de cómo puede acabarse esa división, cómo podemos vernos todos en lugar de adversarios como vecinos aquí en los Estados Unidos, en lugar de estarnos enfrentando por ideologías. Es momento de la unidad, dice Joe Biden.
Only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. And we must meet
Dice que la unidad es el único camino a esta crisis que enfrenta los Estados Unidos.
If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever failed in America.
Dice que si nos unimos y nos mantenemos unidos, no vamos a fallar, que Él nos garantiza que no fallaremos.
Let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another
que por favor empecemos todos de forma fresca desde el principio, borrón y cuenta nueva.
Show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts
Dice que la política no tiene que ser siempre una forma de ser adversarios, de enfrentamientos.
My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better.
Dice que los Estados Unidos es mejor de lo que está pasando en estos momentos.
Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War. When the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance.
Estamos aquí parados enfrente del Capitolio, el cual se terminó precisamente cuando terminaba la guerra civil en los Estados Unidos.
Looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand, where
cerca de donde el Dr. King habló de su sueño.
Thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American
lugar en el
history
que
elected to
miles de
national
mujeres
office,
marcharon para exigir su derecho al voto.
Don't tell me things can't change.
No me digan que las cosas no pueden cambiar, porque sí pueden cambiar.
Across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people.
Y dice, y aquí estamos, a unos días de que insurrectos intentaran tomar el Capitolio.
It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not
Dice
ever.
Que no van a permitir que eso no vuelva a ocurrir, no hoy, no mañana, no nunca.
To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy.
Dice, le hace un llamado a la gente que no lo apoya, que por favor lo escuchen, que pueden seguir sin estar de acuerdo.
Is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion.
Pero que el no estar de acuerdo no significa que no debamos estar unidos.
All Americans.
Pues todos son estadounidenses. Todos son estadounidenses.
And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did.
Dice que va a trabajar y luchar con la misma fuerza por aquellos por los que no votaron por él como por los que votaron por él.
Ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look,
habla pues obviamente del liderazgo que tiene enfrente y de cómo tienen que defenderse frente a las mentiras.
That many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care?
Está hablando del futuro y que entiende cómo hay miedo por los empleos.
About what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this.
Habla de cómo hay que acabar con esta, así le dice, guerra civil entre lo rural y lo urbano, entre lo liberal y lo conservador.
And if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another.
Está citando a un autor al decir que en algunos días necesitamos que nos den la mano y algunos días tenemos que dar nosotros la mano.
And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation.
Está hablando una vez más de la unidad, de cómo es necesaria esta unidad frente a la pandemia.
The Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together.
Vamos a salir adelante de esto juntos, dice.
All my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today.
Dice, el mundo nos está viendo en estos momentos hoy.
Those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances, and engage with the world once again. Not to meet
Dice que
yesterday's challenges,
Estados Unidos
but
restablecerá
today's
sus
and
relaciones con
tomorrow's
otros países del
challenges.
mundo.
And will lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example.
Y que van a liderar al mundo
We'll be
no
a
por el
strong
poder
and trusted
del
partner for
ejemplo, sino
peace,
por dando el ejemplo con
progress,
el
and
poder.
security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those
Pide que se unan todos
400,000
a una oración
fellow Americans,
silenciosa
moms, dads,
como
husbands,
su
wives,
primer
sons,
acto como
daughters,
presidente
friends,
para
neighbors,
honrar a
and
las
coworkers.
víctimas del coronavirus.
We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus,
Dice que este es un
growing
momento de
inequity,
prueba
the sting of
frente a la
systemic
pandemia,
racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world.
con crisis
Any one of
económicas
these
y
would be enough to
climáticas.
challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for
Dice,
boldness.
vamos a ser probados.
For
¿Estamos
there's so
dispuestos a
much to
aceptar
do.
la prueba? Todos
And
nosotros.
this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how
Les
we
prometo que
resolve
seremos
these
juzgados,
cascading
ustedes y yo.
crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe
Dice
we
que
will.
superaremos la prueba para
And when we
nuestros hijos.
do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close today where I
Dice, si
began.
hacemos estos, nuestros hijos y los hijos de nuestros hijos dirán, hicieron lo que pudieron.
I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution.
Dice que va a defender la Constitución, que va
I'll defend America.
a salvaguardar su palabra.
And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Que Dios bendiga a Estados Unidos y que Dios proteja nuestras verdades. Bueno, pues ya estamos de vuelta. Muchas gracias, señoras y señores. Estamos confirmando ciertas informaciones sobre Sandy Aguilera. Permítanos, por favor, confirmar la información mientras concluye este mensaje de Joseph Biden, presidente de los Estados Unidos, 46º presidente de los Estados Unidos, ya juramentado ahí en Washington, D.C., un discurso en el que plantea y busca, por sobre todo, la unión. Habla de cómo es que frente a la crisis que vivimos en estos momentos, una crisis de división, de polarización aquí en los Estados Unidos, una crisis ocasionada también por la pandemia del coronavirus, por la situación económica de desempleo, habla de la unión, hace un llamado a la unión de todos los estadounidenses. Se esperaba, yo no sé qué pasó ahí, pero pues se esperaba que Joe Biden hablara también de esa, pues, supuestamente, es que permítame decirlo de esa forma, ¿no? Iban ellos a declarar, a hacer una declaratoria precisamente sobre una reforma migratoria, pero de esto no se habló desde un principio y le están quedando mal a los mexicanos, a los hispanos, como de costumbre. Esto nos da mucho coraje. No sé si se me fue a mí por intentar traducir con usted. Mire, a veces traducir es muy, muy difícil. De hecho, esta labor la realizan intérpretes que tienen que estudiar para eso y a veces no se escucha parte de lo que uno está traduciendo y etcétera. Esto fue lo que pasó hace unos momentos, pero yo no escuché que se hablara de la inmigración, de este plan que había propuesto ya Joseph Biden. Esperemos que en las próximas horas sea así, porque si no, nos estarán quedando mal los demócratas, como de costumbre, a los mexicanos que también, y a los hispanos, a los inmigrantes que luchamos por esta gran nación, que trabajamos con muchísima fuerza para sacar esta gran nación, señoras y señores. Y le voy a pedir a